The causes for the ruling faculties, beginning with faith, saddha, to arise and to become keen, for faith to become keen, for courage to become, for effort to become courageous, for sati to become strong, for samadhi to become more collected, more focused, and for the ability to know, for the ability to know true nature more clearly, more precisely. For this to happen, it is not without a cause. There are 9 causes explained in the text, and among them, Sayadaw has discussed 7. Yesterday, Sayadaw spoke about the need to practice without regard for life and limb, not to fear experiencing pain, not to fear death. If one is afraid to experience pain, if one is afraid that one might die, then one will have regard for one's life and limb, and one will favor oneself. So if one does this, if one favors oneself, then the powers, these ruling powers beginning with faith, will not become keen. One has to surrender to the practice and go all out. Yesterday, Sayadaw spoke about this. And what is the most important factor involved in surrendering to the practice and in being able to practice without regard for life and limb? Sayadaw will speak about this today. In making effort to gain a happiness which is guaranteed, one can't go about this in an ordinary way. If one has fear regarding experiencing pain or fear regarding one's life, then gaining this is even farther away. So when we want to have the benefit of the practice, then we have to surrender to the practice and make effort in this way, going all out, so that faith will become more and more strong, and so that virya, effort, will become more courageous. So in trying to do this, what is needed? In the practice, discomfort is sure to arise. It is said, upannang dukkhang. The discomfort, pain, arises in the practice. This is a fact. And one has to overcome this with courage. If one is cowardly, if one's courage is slack, and if one fears to experience pain and death, then one won't be able to overcome pain. So one has to have courage. And if one can face this difficulty and gain a victory one time, then one will become courageous. One will no longer fear pain, but one will even challenge it to come. One will be brave. So it is very important to have the determination to reach this type of condition. It is said, tatacha upannam dukkhang abhibhuya viryena. So that means that regarding that effort to practice without regard for life and limb, or in making this kind of effort to develop faith and effort so that they are courageous and strong, one needs to overcome the arising dukkha, the discomfort that arises in one's body time and again, the pains, aches, numbness, all the uncomfortable feelings. One has to overcome these with courage and bhaveti, to make the mind firm, to develop the bhavana mind, make it firm, strong, and bring it to completion. Beings, especially humans who are intelligent beings, they want comfort and they despise discomfort. It is said, sukha kama dukkha patikula. That is, dukkha patikula. Beings despise discomfort, and sukha kama. They want comfort. So this is human nature. This is the nature of beings. And everyone whose mind is not yet mature, even monks, they feel this way. This happens, and monks, of course, are human beings. And lay people also experience this, for sure. So Sayadaw won't go into it as far as how lay people experience things, but for himself, when he was young, he favored himself, and he was afraid to experience pain. He was afraid of death, and consequently, he wouldn't put out full effort. And part of it was because he was still young, and that's the nature of being young. And even up until the time he became a monk, he was really mostly focused on pleasures, wanting pleasures. But when he studied the Buddhist text, and he came to rely on good teachers, then he came to understand the value of having disregard for life and limb. He no longer had this attitude of wanting pleasure and favoring himself. Although beings have this nature, dukkha patikula sukha kama, they don't despise discomfort and they want comfort. But if one really wants happiness, then one has to become intimate with suffering. And partly because his teachers urged him, and partly because of the texts that Sayadaw read, he learned about the Dhamma to the extent that he was able to. And learning about the Dhamma, he wanted to spread it to others. So thus, he encourages, as he knows, that one has to overcome the discomfort that arises in the practice with effort. One needs to have courageous effort. To experience comfort in mind and body, this is called sukha, just ordinary, comfortable feeling, mental and physical. Sukha, or happiness. And people like this. People like comfort. One likes to have the things that one feels comfortable with. One likes to have these comforts, to be with the things that one enjoys. But in time, these things, they either change or they get boring, they become old. So we call it good, but because of causes, these things that we enjoy are bound to change, and they become other than good. They're no longer good. This is called viparinama dukkha. That is the suffering that comes about due to change. And in the body, There may be piercing feelings when there's wind piercing in our body. There's pains. There's many types of pains that arise in the body, and this is called dukkha, real suffering or extreme suffering. So these are things which we encounter. Beings encounter this. And then there's what the Buddha called sankhara dukkha, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking. Mind and matter, which arises due to causes. These are called sankharas. And this, what we experience, is called sankhara dukkha. In the world, there's no true happiness. The small little bit of good things that we experience, this is viparinama dukkha. These are things which are bound to change and become otherwise, other than good. So when these types of things, when the good things that we have that are bound to change due to causes, then when we hold on to that, we experience sorrow. And this sorrow can be even extreme. We can experience a lot of suffering due to the changes in the things that we enjoy in life. So beings have to experience these three types of suffering: viparinama dukkha, the suffering due to change; dukkha, that is real suffering, extreme suffering; and sankhara dukkha, the suffering of the sankharas. So how bad this is? This is bad. But most people enjoy these things. Most people enjoy their lives like moths flying around a flame or a lamp in the nighttime. If you look around a lamp, at the base of a lamp in the morning, how many dead moths do you see on the ground? And most people are like this. They reach the end of their lives like these moths. They don't search at all to find something substantial in their lives. They have no time to extract the essence, the substance from their lives. They don't know a method for doing this, or they know it, but they don't make effort in this. And thus, making just superficial effort to gain something valuable from their lives, they reach the end of their lives. Most people are like this. People in the world now mostly do not reflect on how to become free of the suffering of existence. They're enjoying their lives. If on this side of the river we are sure to experience suffering, but if we cross over the river, we can reach guaranteed happiness, then it's important to try to cross over the river. Try to cross over as soon as possible. If we just go along floating in the river, then we'll just go wherever the river goes. And if we stay on the bank, on this side of the river bank, we're sure to die. So some people are able to cross over to the other side, but most people just float along in the river. In the time of the Buddha, there was a Brahmin hermit who reflected. He reflected that everywhere, in every being, there is craving for sense objects. There is tanha. And people go along with this stream of craving. There are various views various ideas, and people flow along in this river, this stream of views. They go along with these views. And some people have extreme anger and no moral fear, no moral shame. They flow along in that river. They follow this tendency and perform unwholesome actions, unwholesome speech, unwholesome planning. They perform duccaritas, misdeeds. And ignorance, avidya, it also flows like a river. So he asked the Buddha, he said that everywhere streams are flowing. What is it that one can use to stop the flow, to make this flow slow down gradually, and then with what can one cut it off? These days, there are very few people who ask this type of question because they do not see the suffering involved in their experience. The Buddha answered his question, first of all, by acknowledging what he had said. It's true, everywhere, kilesas, the defilements, are flowing like a river. With sati, one can slow it down. Observe at every arising, always guard the mind. Observe at every seeing, always guard the mind. Observe at every hearing, every smelling, tasting, touching, thinking, lifting, moving, placing, bending, stretching. Put the mind in one's body and observe every arising object with ardent effort and accurate aim so that sati arises. And with that sati, the great stream of kilesas can become weakened. The yogis are now following this path. So think about how it is now for you in comparison to how it was at the beginning of the retreat, or how it was before you ever practiced. With sati, the kilesas can't be cut off all at once, but they can be weakened gradually. And this is what happens practically. No matter how good sati is, it can't eliminate the latent kilesas, the ones that lie dormant. It just stops the ones that arise moment by moment. If one can observe every arising object, then the kilesas, which would have arisen if we weren't mindful, have no chance to arise. So the Brahmin continued to ask. He asked the Buddha, it's true, sati can slow down the flow. It can weaken the flow of the kilesas. But how to cut them off completely? And the Buddha answered that with wisdom, one can cut off the kilesas completely with Vipassana knowledge, and from there, with past knowledge. This is the method of cutting off the kilesas. One uses the method of sati and samadhi to stop the flow, to dam the flow of the kilesas. And the method of panya is for cutting them off. And today the yogis are doing this. When one observes every arising mind and matter in one's body, then sati arises, and there are no kilesas which can arise then. So their momentum becomes weakened. When one comes to know mind and matter and cause, how they are related as cause and effect, how they arise and then pass away, how they are unsatisfactory, and how they are without an inherent self, then, although when one does not know, one holds on. When one knows, one lets go. So not knowing, one clings. Knowing, one lets go. So there's no craving for one's experience because knowledge is there. Tanha cannot arise when knowledge is present. And because one knows mind and matter, one is not knowing it in the wrong way. One is, not only is there knowledge arising, so there's no ignorance, but there's also no knowing in the wrong way. One knows them the way they are. So one doesn't take mind and matter to be a self, to be a jiva atta or parama atta, to be a self or a supreme being. There's no more belief that arises. And others also, other forms of the kilesas are also cut off, like pride. So, at this time, there's no chance for one to commit misdeeds by way of body or speech or mind. There's no kaya ducharitas, vaci ducharitas, or mano ducharitas having any chance to arise. And I can't read what I wrote. So, because one knows, even to a small extent, there's no kilesas, no defilements are arising at all, not even very small, minor things. So when one knows clearly, then there's no ignorance, and there's also no knowing in the wrong way. These don't arise. With every observation, one knows correctly the mind and matter which is related as cause and effect. And the mind is therefore clear. So, with this clarity of mind, the ignorance and knowing in the wrong way are cut off. So this is how the stream of kilesas are cut off with Vipassana knowledge. The kilesas are cut off moment by moment when knowledge arises. And the seeds are also cut off. The roots of the kilesas are cut off in this moment. How valuable this is, so that this valuable work will not become reduced, so that there won't be any reduction in this very valuable thing. Don't stop along the way. One needs to overcome the arising dukkha with courageous effort. Practicing the Dhamma of Satipatthana, Sayadaw said before, is to become a true human being, to make our mind and our mentality truly humane. And although we have a human intelligence to develop knowledge that is special, to make our life high level. Practicing the Dhamma means we search for a method and then we use it. And in using this method, we need to have 3 levels of effort, 3 levels of courage. First of all, the initial effort to begin the practice. This is called arambha dhatu. And then as we continue to practice, we meet up with difficulties that make us want to back off. And at that time, we need to boost our effort. We need to have the type of effort that is called nekkhamma dhatu, nekkhamma virya, this stepped up effort to face the difficulty, to face the especially laziness, boredom that comes in. So when we can overcome laziness, then we feel all right in the practice. People should have a goal. And in the world, we set goals for ourselves. And one should do the same in working for liberation. And one should have a goal to at least become free of future existences. So we need to have progressive effort, parekkhamma dhatu, that is progressive effort that takes us up stage by stage until we reach the goal. So if we can go forward with these 3 levels of effort, these 3 types of courage, then one will reach one's goal and one will make it worthwhile, having been born a human being in the time of the Buddha's dispensation. And in any future lifetimes that come, one will be able to control oneself. One will be able to live like a true human being with a humane mentality, and one will have special human knowledge. To reach this stage, be courageous in facing difficulties. Then one will be able to overcome them. This is the 8th cause for strengthening, sharpening the ruling faculties.
Amari Messiah Olo, Agulu of Malana, Lido, Malango, some shop with your body, Coco, Katie and Leather, Judah and Java, Jedo, Living in a tattoo in India, something like that.
Sayadaw would like to close the talk tonight by urging you that so as not to err, so as not to walk the wrong path, may you walk along the right path, reach the right path and walk along it and become your own saviors. That's all for today.